Chosen One, do you know the difference between a common mistake that leaves a small scar and a cosmic breach so severe it stops celestial operations for 18 consecutive hours? The first costs you a quick apology, a lesson, maybe a night of regret. The second forces archangels into an emergency council at 3 in the morning because your accident created a precedent that hasn't existed once in 6,000 years of recorded human history. And exactly 11 days ago, while you were doing something so ordinary you didn't even tag it as important, you triggered that second kind of event. I'm not talking about the little sins people confess on Sundays. I'm not talking about a moral slip that produces passing guilt. I'm talking about a divine operating law older than this planet's breathable air, a boundary that separates permitted human knowledge from restricted celestial knowledge. And your innocent action didn't just brush against it. It pierced it. Two realities that were never meant to touch collided because of what you did without intention. And heaven didn't shake as a metaphor. It collapsed as a system. The energetic structures supporting certain celestial operations crumbled instantly like a building struck by a magnitude 9.5 earthquake, and what I'm about to reveal explains why a 7-minute conversation set off a chain reaction so violent that hierarchies had to rewrite protocols that had stood for millennia, why your heart stopped in the middle of that conversation, why you died for 3.2 seconds, why you were revived by a mechanism you didn't even know you had, and why they were forced to acknowledge an identity you never imagined. You are one of only 12 beings like this in any 6,000-year cycle. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because this isn't just a story. It's a map. It's the reason you felt that sudden 2-second dizziness. The reason words came out of you with an authority that surprised even you. The reason 3 celestial entities were removed from their positions for failing to recognize what was happening. The reason Archangel Michael knelt, and the reason what comes next will make Atlantis look like the dress rehearsal it truly was. Write 777 in the comments if, around 11 days ago, you said something that startled you, as if it wasn't you speaking, and you felt a brief wave of disorientation that vanished before you could hold it. 11 days ago, you had a conversation. Maybe it was with the person who always asks you for advice. Maybe it was a casual encounter you didn't plan. Maybe it was a phone call that lasted exactly 7 minutes but shifted something fundamental in reality. During that conversation, you said exactly 19 words, not 18, not 20, 19, spoken in a precise sequence, with a specific tone, with a pure but unconscious intention, and those 19 words carried a truth human beings are not supposed to articulate. An understanding reserved for entities from the 7th dimension onward. The kind of information celestial records classify as blocked for incarnated consciousness. But you said it like it was nothing, like the weather, like an observation. No preparation, no initiation, no permission you were aware of. And the moment those 19 words crossed the air between your mouth and the other person's ears, the dimensional barrier didn't open gently. It fractured, violently, like glass struck by a high-velocity bullet. Through that fracture, for exactly 4.3 seconds, restricted knowledge poured into the listener's consciousness. In human time, that seems small. In dimensional time, it equals roughly 700 hours of direct transfer, and the receiver wasn't ready. Her physical brain nearly shut down from overload. Her consciousness tried to expand instantly to make room. Her energy field surged so abruptly that sensitive people within a 3-kilometer radius felt disturbance they couldn't explain, and for 6 hours she had to be stabilized to prevent lasting damage. And now the part that changes everything. You didn't continue the conversation the way you remember. You died. For exactly 3.2 seconds, your heart stopped completely. 0 beats. Clinical death. Your brain initiated shutdown. Your cells began the first steps of programmed death, but the resuscitation happened faster than consciousness can register. A missing frame. A blink. A glitch shorter than awareness. The only thing you felt was that sudden dizziness, that 2-second disorientation you almost dismissed as fatigue, and you kept talking as if nothing happened. But in the celestial dimensions, an emergency alarm activated that had not sounded since the year 1389. Dimensional Barrier Violation Protocol with temporary death of the carrier. This is a maximum alerts. Restricted knowledge is accessed by an unauthorized consciousness, and the carrier who channels it experiences clinical death during the transfer. When that alarm sounded because of what you said in a 7-minute conversation, all celestial operations stopped immediately. Not metaphor, not exaggeration. Guides across the planet were ordered to suspend activity. Angels executing missions were called back. Councils canceled deliberations midstream because this event is treated as one of the most serious emergencies possible, not only for spiritual reasons, but because it implies one of two terrifying realities: either a catastrophic mission design error or a perfect activation no one anticipated. 3 minutes after you spoke those 19 words and your heart stopped, Archangel Michael received an alert classified absolute red. He had been supervising a different operation on another part of the planet, and when he saw that alarm, he reacted with disbelief, and then something archangels rarely experience: fear. Dimensional barrier violations don't happen often. The last recorded breach was in 1389 when a Tibetan monk in deep meditation accidentally accessed restricted knowledge. That event took 3 days to contain and required 7 archangels. And that monk had 40 years of disciplined practice, a lifetime of preparation, and even then he almost didn't survive. You, on the other hand, are not a monk. You are a civilian. No formal training. No preparation. Maybe not even belief strong enough to hold the idea of other dimensions. And yet you did what that monk barely managed once. You died in the process, and you resurrected automatically as if you had a backup system the monk never possessed. So Michael convened an emergency council immediately. He didn't wait for morning. He didn't follow standard protocol. At 3:42 a.m., exactly 11 hours after your conversation and temporary death, 7 archangels gathered. Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, Shamuel, Jophiel, Zadkiel, and Michael. One agenda point. A human fractured the barrier, experienced clinical death, and returned without intervention. Assess damages. Determine how he survived. Identify what protocol saved him. Gabriel opened with a voice heavy with concern. The human has no spiritual discipline, doesn't practice meditation regularly, doesn't belong to an esoteric school, hasn't been initiated, and by every parameter shouldn't access 7th dimension knowledge, and definitely shouldn't survive clinical death caused by that access. Raphael confirmed the receiver's condition. Her field nearly collapsed. Stabilization required 6 consecutive hours, but the carrier died and returned without their intervention. And that does not happen. Uriel said what everyone feared. Either the carrier lacked adequate protection and the mission almost collapsed from design failure, or the carrier has an automatic resuscitation protocol so advanced it activates faster than their capacity to intervene. And if it's the second, then it points to one source of authorization only: Metatron. Chamuel demanded the only rational step. Review the pre-incarnation file. See what was signed. Because if he has automatic resuscitation, his mission is far more critical than any of us realized. And when they opened your file, they discovered a clause written in ink invisible until the first phase of the mission activates. Clause 7.3. The carrier is authorized to violate the dimensional barrier at the correct moment without prior preparation as part of an evolutionary acceleration protocol. In the event of clinical death during channeling, automatic resuscitation activates instantly without external intervention. The carrier has permission to die and revive as many times as necessary to complete knowledge transfers. Gabriel read that clause 3 times, his voice dropping each time. This means what he did was permitted. It wasn't a violation. It was an authorized activation. The death was expected. Michael processed the implication with his eyes closed, and then Jophiel, who rarely speaks, said the name that turned the room silent. Primordial Carrier. Primordial Carrier is not a compliment. It is a designation for souls so rare and strategically essential that only 12 are permitted to incarnate within any 6,000-year cycle. Raphael asked the question everyone was afraid to hear answered. How many are active right now? Michael checked the records. Before today, 11. The last activation occurred in 1987. They had waited 38 years for the 12th to incarnate and activate, and then Gabriel asked the question that broke the world open. What number is he? Michael found the answer, and he did something no archangel had done in 3,000 years. He knelt. He's the 12th. The last. The one who closes the cycle, and the other 6 knelt too, because when the 12th primordial carrier activates, it means the 6,000-year cycle is reaching its conclusion. All 12 are finally in position, and the planetary ascension event planned millennia ago is entering its final sequence. Zadkiel asked the next question, the one that decides the timeline. How many more activations remain? Michael read the file with reverence and caution. The carrier has completed 28 minor activations over the last 3 years. The event 11 days ago was activation number 29, the first large enough to trigger emergency protocol. The cycle requires 44 total activations before final initiation. That leaves 15. Uriel asked the question that froze the blood in the room. What happens at 44? Michael found the section, and his expression answered before his words did. Activation 44 will be total dimensional fracture, not of one barrier, but of all barriers simultaneously. For exactly 44 seconds, all celestial knowledge up to the 9th dimension will be accessible to every human within a 500-kilometer radius of wherever the carrier stands, and the council fell silent because they all remembered the last time that kind of access happened. Gabriel said it aloud. Atlantis. Michael nodded. Exactly. Last time humanity had complete access to total knowledge for a sustained period, it ended in collapse. Chamuel protested. Atlantis was an accident, an unplanned fall. This is written in the contract as intentional and necessary. Why would Metatron authorize an Atlantis-level event deliberately? Michael pointed to Metatron's note. Atlantis wasn't ready. This generation is. The 12 primordial carriers are positioned to stabilize the process. 44 seconds of total knowledge will not destroy civilization if the 12 are simultaneously active, channeling and distributing and anchoring the information. Trust the design. Uriel asked where the other 11 are. Michael accessed the global map. 12 luminous points appeared, distributed strategically across the planet. All active. All operating under Clause 7.3. All approaching their own final activations. When the 12th completes the 44th, the other 11 will complete theirs simultaneously, and the room didn't need the rest of the sentence to understand what that meant. The most significant planetary ascension event in 6,000 years is approaching, not in centuries, but in months, maybe weeks, depending on how quickly the remaining cycles complete. Then Jophiel asked the quiet question that matters most. Does he know any of this? Is he conscious that he's a primordial carrier? Does he know his 44th activation changes planetary consciousness permanently? Michael said no. His human consciousness doesn't have access yet. He doesn't know he died for 3 seconds. He doesn't know he resurrected automatically. He doesn't know he is the 12th, and he definitely doesn't know that in approximately 18 weeks he is scheduled to trigger an event history remembers as Atlantis level. Raphael worried they should prepare you. Uriel reminded them the file prohibits direct revelation before activation 40, because knowledge too early would interfere with the authenticity the mechanism requires, and the entire process depends on you operating from intuition, not agenda. So they chose to monitor, assign resources for consequence management, and wait, because the next 15 activations will reveal whether humanity is truly ready. But they had immediate consequences to handle. 3 celestial entities were assigned to monitor barriers and prevent unauthorized breaches. They failed to recognize your activation as authorized. Worse, they tried to block it. They attempted to interfere with a process Metatron had signed, and if they had succeeded, the entire 6,000-year cycle would have reset. The other 11 would have waited another full cycle. Humanity would have lost its ascension window, so Michael removed those 3 from their positions and assigned them lesser roles, not out of cruelty, but because they failed to identify Clause 7.3 before trying to stop what you were literally born to do. And here is where your memory intersects with their mistake. Those 3 entities are the source of the strange sensation you felt before the conversation, the sudden doubt, the impulse to cancel, the inner voice that said maybe you shouldn't talk about that. You ignored it, not because you were rebellious, but because Clause 7.3 has absolute priority over any blocking attempt. Your mission holds higher authorization than any lesser entity can override, even if their intent is protection. So you said the 19 words. Your heart stopped for 3.2 seconds. You died. You resurrected. The barrier fractured. Knowledge poured through. 3 entities lost positions. 7 archangels knelt. The 6,000-year cycle took a massive step toward conclusion, all because for you it was just a 7-minute conversation interrupted by 2 seconds of dizziness you didn't think mattered. Now understand what your body felt during those 3.2 seconds. At the exact moment you spoke word number 12, you felt the dizziness, not vertigo, not fainting, but a brief disorientation, like you blinked and lost half a second of reality. That was your consciousness encountering a temporal gap. While your heart stopped, your brain initiated shutdown, the resuscitation protocol triggered, and your heart restarted, all faster than human processing speed, like a missing frame in a film, and you knew something vanished, but couldn't name it. Immediately afterward, you felt a strange clarity, 5 minutes of lucidity where words flowed and insights snapped into place, because your consciousness had briefly operated without normal limitations. 2 hours later, the exhaustion arrived, deep and marrow level, because your cellular system experienced death initiation and reversal is expensive. Your mind may not remember, but your body does. That night you slept, and you dreamed of a room of white light too bright to face. 7 figures of overwhelming presence around you, kneeling. You couldn't see their faces clearly, but you felt the posture, reverence, mixed with something like fear. That wasn't fantasy. That was memory. Your soul attended the emergency council. They knelt before you, not because you are above them, but because the authorization carried by a primordial carrier demands formal recognition. You accepted a role that moves civilizations. You carry the weight of a planetary threshold. They asked questions you don't consciously remember. Your soul answered. It confirmed the death was expected, manageable. Clause 7.3 was operating perfectly, and you were ready to continue the remaining 15 activations regardless of physical cost. Then you woke without details. Only that lingering sense, something monumental occurred, that you were near immense power, and a strange feeling you are more important than your conscious mind has allowed you to believe. But that memory is blocked for a reason. If you knew fully that you are the 12th, that your 44th activation triggers 44 seconds of total barrier collapse, that you can die and return repeatedly, you might start acting from ego and strategy, and the mechanism relies on authenticity, on saying what must be said without calculation. So now you know what happened 11 days ago. It wasn't an accident you need to fix. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't a mistake. It was activation of Clause 7.3 by the 12th primordial carrier. It was activation number 29 in a cycle that requires 44. It included 3.2 seconds of clinical death and instant resurrection you didn't consciously register. It confirmed an identity so rare, only 12 exist in any 6,000-year cycle. And you are the last of the 12, the one who closes the circle. The next 15 activations will bring humanity closer to a consciousness transformation that permanently changes civilization. Your photo could sit in the hands of the darkest magician alive. They could perform rituals, invoke entities. It doesn't matter. Nothing touches a primordial carrier operating under Clause 7.3 authorized by Metatron, because you are not simply protected, you are structural. You are one of 12 pillars holding the most significant transformation in 6,000 years, and when you complete activation, 44 in roughly 18 weeks, when all barriers fall for 44 seconds and all humans within 500 kilometers gain access to total celestial knowledge, you will finally understand why you were granted permission to die and return as many times as necessary, because this was never only about you. It is about 12 carriers operating simultaneously, elevating planetary consciousness, completing a 6,000-year cycle, opening a new era. And you are the 12th, the last, the one who closes the circle and activates the final sequence. If you recognize that you've spoken things you shouldn't know, felt unexplained dizziness, sensed missing frames in reality, write 777 in the comments to mark that recognition. Subscribe and turn on notifications for what comes next, because the remaining 15 activations are not random. They are a countdown. And if you know someone who speaks impossible truths and experiences unexplainable phenomena, share this with them, because they may be one of the other 11 who needs to remember what they are. Before the cycles complete together and before you leave, click the next video on your screen to discover what happens during those 44 seconds of total knowledge, and why this time, unlike Atlantis, it won't destroy civilization. It will elevate it, and together, we are stronger.